Hey, what is up everyone, and welcome back to Flash Hobbies. So if you clicked on this video, obviously you know we're going to be working on a monster truck today. This video is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be edited, but it's going to be edited in a, I would say, casual manner. And what I mean by that is, this is just going to be a casual video. If you're looking for anything informative, there might be some stuff in here for you. Overall, I'm just going to go over how we're going to build this thing. I picked this kit up off of Facebook Marketplace from a gentleman. He said that he had something else come up and he basically wanted to dedicate his funds to another project. So I bought this off of him. As you guys may or may not know, I'm into the monster trucks right now. I'm in the monster truck phase. When I saw this deal pop up, I was like, sure, why not? 220 shipped to my door. It's a kit. It comes with a lot of things. It doesn't come with the electronics, but I had extras, so I was like, why not? For 220, I think it's a fair deal. Has some upgrades. So we have the upgraded front and rear sway bars. I'm going to change a couple things like these headers. I printed my own. I printed some upgrades for this as well. And you guys will see what the theme is whenever we continue this build. Like I said, this is a kit. So as far as the kit goes, he already built the the chassis. I don't know how. I guess he already had this body lying around, because if I'm not mistaken, the kit does not come with a body, so I think he had this laying around. He said it was going to include it. It does have a couple scuffs here and there, but that's what the trucks are for. It's no big deal. It's going to get scratched up with me anyway, so why not? I'm not going to go with the Gravedigger theme. I'm going to remove these decals, and I'm going to make my own, and we'll see how it turns out in the end. Here's what he included in here. So we have these J Concepts 2.6. These are the Renegades and Tribute wheels. Very nice looking wheels. A lot heftier than the stock BKT wheels that come with the SMT. So these are going to be a very nice addition. Brand new. 60 bucks right there just in tires. So I feel like this kit is already paid off very well. Of course, we have all of our assorted bags. Instruction manual. One thing that I did buy myself are I'm gonna do double shocks on each corner. So this build is gonna have 8 shocks in total. I'll leave the link down in the description for these. I don't know how well they're gonna work for this build, but I did get them off of Amazon, so if they don't work out, I can always return them. No big deal. These are internal spring shocks, so I'm trying to get as close to realistic as possible. I might 3D print some reservoirs so it looks even more realistic. We'll just see how it turns out in the end. And as I did mention, I printed some upgrades and I bought some upgrades in the anticipation of getting this kit. So I do have everything here with me to finish this build. So it looks like bag A is going to be starting us off pretty complicated actually. We're going to be doing the diffs for the front. So I have bag A opened. I'm going to use some of my own grease in this just because I like some of the stuff that I use more than what comes in kits. You can always substitute that stuff. Has all your bearings. The bearings are pretty okay. Okay, so we're starting with the diff. Got our bearing out there. Looks like we're going to need a couple of these. And a couple of these. And then that should be a full set right there. Now when you're building the diffs, always take your time. I've built so many in my day. It's kind of second nature to me, but you never want to get too cocky because then that's when you make mistakes. But overall, it's not too bad. If you build 1 or 2, it's usually pretty easy going. And then the instructions are pretty straightforward. We're going to put one of these in here, and it's going to take one of these clips, or one of these pins, I should say. Pin's going to go in here. And that drops there. You're gonna want your little button head on top and the flat piece on the bottom here. So we're gonna load these up with grease here. Since they give you this, I would say I don't know, you use it however you want, as much or as little. Honestly, won't make that big of a difference. You just want some grease in there because it's metal on metal contact, so you don't want to have that. That's for sure. Then I'm going to try to match up the slots here with the same slot there. All right. We're going to post our little gasket here, and then your gear is going to go on. It's got two little knobs on it that line up with the holes here, so there's no mistaking where it needs to go. And then we'll put in our screws, our bearing on the outside, and that diff is done. And then we repeat it for the second one. One thing that I didn't mention to you guys is there's a C-clip that goes right here. That's why I said you need to leave that little button head on the top and the flat on the bottom. That way this doesn't come off. The two diffs are done. They're greased. They're all tightened up and they're ready to go. So for the front assembly, it wants you to start off with this one. And we're going to start putting our bearings in. So we have one bearing in here. Another one gets dropped inside as well. And we'll push that one in. So what I find easy is if you can get one of these. This is a 12 millimeter. I use it to take off my wheels. See how easy that was to get in there? It was kind of hard with my fingers to get all the way down in there. We're going to put one of these in here, which in turn comes out to this side. That's where your drive shaft is going to attach. For the front, it wants you to drop in the diff this way. So at this point, this is where I would grease this side. I use this white lithium grease from, I believe I got it from O'Reilly's if I'm not mistaken. It's pretty good. It's waterproof. It's very thick. It's very, I don't know how to say it. It's very sticky. And I'll show you. Once it grabs onto the gears, it has a very nice tackiness to it. So I'm just going to grease this inside here. I find that this helps a lot. And you don't want to go too crazy with the grease. But you also don't want to be too light with it as well. And I only put it on one side where the gear is. It's not really necessary to put it on the entire thing. Okay, so I'll give that a little whirl. Stick the diff in there and we'll start putting it in there. Alright, there you go. You can see that the grease is now on the gear. That's going to be nice. It's going to keep it cool. It's also waterproof, so it keeps a lot of the gunk out of there as well. And then we're going to attach this here with these little clips that they provide. There goes one on this side, one on this side, and that's going to keep everything nice and tight on the inside. And then they're going to have the diff cover. So that's where my first upgrade, it's not really an upgrade, it's just an aesthetic thing, but you'll see. There's a 3D printable AR60 cover, which I'll leave in the description below for you guys. And if you're interested in buying it, you can always message me and I can print it for you. I have several different colors, so very nice to be able to have that option. Once those screws are in there, I give it a nice little swirl to make sure that the grease gets distributed evenly. You should be able to turn this by hand. If you can't turn it by hand, something's not right somewhere, and I would revisit all the steps. So to give you guys the first inkling to the theme of this build, here is the first clue. I 3D printed that, and like I said, it's very nice that you can customize that. And I have this actually on one of my other builds, and it has held up very nicely. So I decided to go and do it with this build as well. And again, once the cover is on, you should be able to turn it by hand, which I can. Shouldn't hear any grinding. Shouldn't be any sudden stops on it. Should be very, very good. So the next step is this. So we're gonna put bearings. We're gonna put bearings here. We're gonna put one on the other side. These little C-hubs are gonna go on the end here. They're gonna go screwed in. There's gonna be little holes there that line up, and then you just want to make sure that they line up with the axle, because this is where it's gonna pivot. There's gonna be turning here. You're gonna need one of the short ones and one of the long ones here. Obviously, long one goes on the long side, short one goes on the short side. Pretty straightforward on that end. And once you insert it, you want to turn it until it goes all the way in. And if you can, try to spin it by hand, or if not, try to spin it here and make sure that that turns. That means that it is engaged on that side. And then the same thing with this. You just want to put it on the inside here, turn it, and just keep turning it until it finally seats in. Once it seats on the inside, it should sit on the inside of the C-hub. Same thing here. And again, at this step, you want to test. You always want to test while you can. That way you don't have to take the whole thing apart. And as you can see, both sides are spinning. So that side turns, that side is turning as well, which means everything is engaged. Now it's time for the C-hubs. Very simple. Bearing out in the inside here, the big one. Then we're going to put a small bearing on the outside here. This is your like drive coupling. I don't know what it's exactly called, but that goes in there. You're going to line that up with the drive shaft inside. This goes inside, and then screws go here and here. And there is your turning for the front and rear. The links are going to attach to this later on. Yeah, very simple. You want to make sure that it's not so tight that you can't. You have to be able to move this by hand. Both sides. To install the brace, all the holes should line up here. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4 holes that should line up. And then you just install your screws. On the original steps, they want you to put these in at the same time as you're putting in the brace. So they would actually just go right here. They have little indentations and they should just sit on the inside. And then you finish them off with the screws. But since I am doing the double shocks on each corner, I'm actually not going to use these because these wouldn't work. So what I am using are these. And these are aluminum. So it's going to give you some reinforcement. They fit exactly the same. The only difference is that if you can see here, there's 1 hole and there's 2 holes so that you can do double shocks on each corner. They do provide the hardware, but yeah, you can actually use the stock hardware that comes with the axle. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get these installed, and that'll finish off this axle here. The rear goes assembled the same exact way as the front, so I'm not really going to explain that too much. The only difference here is these are a little bit different, but they go in the same way. So the long side is going to go on the long side, and you're going to want to turn that until it reaches, until you feel it grip on the inside here on the diff, and then the short side goes in as well. And as you can see, you can turn it by hand here, or you can turn it by hand right here. Either way, you just the same thing. You want to make sure that that's on there. There's going to be a bearing that goes on here, and a bearing that goes on this end. And instead of C-hubs, you have these little caps that are going to go in here. Very simple. The holes line up. If they don't line up, just keep turning it until they do. So 1 screw here, 1 screw here, and the same on the other side. And again, I'm not going to use these because I'm doing the double shock, so I'm going to use the ones that I mentioned for the front, and I'm going to use those for the rear as well. Next is bag B. So with bag B is actually the links for the front. I've already put in the ball ends on all of these, so they're all ready to go. These are just the screws that are going to help attach it to the axle. So this part's going to go here. We're going to put 1 screw that goes through the top here. Kind of hard to line that up. Alright, so that goes through. Then we put a locking nut here, and we'll tighten that in a bit. The next thing that's going to go up there is this one here. So that one's going to go right there. Then the opposite side would do the same exact thing. I'm going to get that screw to go through all the way through, and then we're going to put another locking nut there. It looks like a lot has been done, but it was just more time consuming than anything. Basically, the next steps were putting all these little plastic ball ends inside of each one of these on the trailing arms and on the upper links for both the front and the rear. Those were attached to the braces down here, and there is a brace right here for the upper links. And we put the servo holder on that brace right here, and the servo is now in place. I'm not at this, it wants us to put the servo saver in, but I'm not going to use the stock one. I'm going to use an aftermarket one, so I'll put that at the end whenever I'm getting everything lined up with the steering and I have the radio working. The rear was the same as the front, just attached the lower links to the braces here. two upper links go attached here, and that was it. The only bag that I opened at this point was bag C, and that included all the parts for the servo saver, and it also included the screws for the servo and the servo mount for the brace. The next step is putting up the shocks, but since I'm not using the stock shocks, I'm not going to be using bag D. This is all of the stock shock parts. I'm going to probably sell this or just hold on to it until I have another build. Who knows? But there's a lot of pieces that aren't going to get used. There's a lot of parts that aren't going to get used because I'm going to use these. Again, link will be in the description for these. These are internal spring shocks, so we'll see how they work. This is going to be pretty interesting mounting these. And although this is the next step, I'm probably going to save this towards the end just because I need to engineer. My mind needs to see how exactly they're going to fit on here onto the tube chassis itself, where they're going to mount. And these are shorter than the stock ones. The stock ones are 120 millimeter. These are 110. I wanted to sit a little bit lower to get some better handling. The transmission consists of this spur gear, the plastic housing, and there's a spur cover. This is the guard for the spur that's going to go on there. And then it wants us to open bag E. There's our slipper pads. It's going to be all of our gears inside, which is all metal gears, which is awesome. We're going to be putting a 4000 kV motor in this with a Mamba Max 6 or something like that. It can basically handle up to like 6S, but we're definitely not going to put 6S through this truck. So we'll get all these pieces removed here and see what we need, what we don't need. Wants us to open bag E, so let's go ahead and open this up. And again, this includes everything that we need. This has all your gears for the transmission. It has the slipper plate, the slipper pads, the spur gear. So if I remember correctly, without looking at the instructions, this part goes into here, this one's going to go into here. That's going to be your bottom gear down here. You know, of course we're going to put the bearings and everything in there. This part goes in here. There's going to be two bearings, one that goes on this side, one on this side, and that goes in here. Then we're going to have this one. So you see there's this little slot. We're going to use that pin, and that's going to sit in here somewhere. This is going to go through here where that pin holds on this side here, something like that. Then we're going to put all of our bearings and stuff on this side. I like to grease my transmission, so again I'm going to use that same grease that I used in the Diffs, and I'm going to use it in here. We're going to pack it in. The transmission is now assembled, and this is what I'm running. The Tekin 4000 kV Censored Pro 4. I'm not going to run it with the sensor right now, but I always have that option to do it. This is the Mamba Max Short Course Truck Edition. I've had this one for years and years. Still going strong, still great ESC, very tunable with the Castle Link It's been great so far. That's going to get paired up with a Glitch Buster Beck, and then I showed it earlier in the video, but using the Protect 100, that should be enough to move the big wheels from side to side with no issues. That's the stock Spur Gear, and I went with the biggest that I can fit on here, which was a 17 tooth, and this is a 5mm shaft, so it's the bigger shaft, and this is a hardened gear, which this should be okay with this. I've used this before in my other rigs, never really damages the plastic Spur Gear. Now it's time to attach the transmission to the base plate here. So as you can see, the stock battery tray sits like this. You remove 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and then another 4 on the other side. And all you're going to do is just flip it up like this, flip it around. Now your weight sits lower, and it helps your center of gravity go down, and it fits in the same exact holes, no problems, no issues. The second thing is, now that I took that battery tray off, I have access to take off the headers, which it's very easy to do through the cage here. We're going to take one side off, and then we're going to take the other side off, and I'm going to show you the ones that I made. So these are the ones that I printed. I made these with a rainbow filament, and here is another clue as to what the build is. The colors kind of matched up with what I wanted, but I don't think they're a dead giveaway, that's for sure. But you can see the color transition in these. They came out pretty good. And there the headers are installed. They go right into the stock location. Very nice. There's this side, and there's the other side. Now we're going to put the stock battery tray back in. Like I said, it goes right back into the stock location. You don't have to relocate anything. Very cheap upgrade. I'm always a fan of those. So again, your battery is accessible. Now it hangs down here, brings your weight down. It really helps with rollovers, I believe. I don't know, I'm a big believer in that one. But time for the next upgrade. Here it is. 3D printed wheelie bar. It's gonna go on the back. Anybody can guess the theme just yet? Or is it still kind of hard to find out? And if you're thinking Barney, you're awfully close. Again, guys, everything that I use for as far as the 3D printing is down in the description below. If you ever want me to make you it, I can. Just send me what you want, what color, we can work something out. But it's installed. It's a very simple installation. So normally it takes this extra one down here, but since you flip the battery tray upside down, it does get in the way, so you have to remove that one. It does tie into the existing rear, so you do have some support there, and then you have support on the rear. And then once you put the shocks on, I feel it gives it enough structure, so you don't really need this one, and I forgot about that, so I printed an extra one for nothing. But no big deal. I guess now it's time to start mounting the transmission, the axles, and getting everything towards the end here. Alright, she's looking like a whole new truck. Where to begin? So I added these front braces that I 3D printed, also purple, and I went ahead and added the dual shocks on each corner. So now we have 2 here, we have 2 here, and then also on the other side. Here is where the sway bar ended up. I just shortened this, and it does pretty well. Now the interesting thing is the front feels pretty perfect to me. The back feels a little stiff, but I guess that's okay. If we're landing pretty hard, it should be okay. But anyways, I did manage to lose one of the body posts. I don't know what I did with it. I'm gonna see if I can 3D print one, or if I can make use of something that I have flying around somewhere. But I am missing one. But that's where we're at right now. She's looking really good. I did get everything put together here, and also one thing to note is this kit didn't include the drive shafts. For some reason he kept them, but I have ordered these from eBay. These are KYX. Never used these before. They look pretty good. They were a good price. Again, I'll leave the description down below if you guys are interested in that. But it's getting there. So the next step is working on the body, or I can go ahead and just attach the wheels now, just so you guys can see how the wheels are going to look. There it is with the wheels on. Looks super good. Really love the way this is turning out. Again, these are the 2.6 tributes with Renegade tires. The stance looks so good on it.